Welcome to the pre-taping of our history tape number 325. As we tape people that live in Grand Prairie or in its environs and that are making history either in the past or continue to make history today. And that is the case. And we are very excited today. Our history tape will appear on January the 27th, 1998, and it will feature two wonderful folks. First of all, we have with us in the center our special guest, Mr. Rodney DeBon. Rodney, welcome to the set.
Welcome, Ruthie. Thank you.
We're just so glad that you're with us today.
Well, thank you.
You and I are glad to be anywhere, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's the Lord's will that we're here even.
Right.
And we have with us also Becky Nicholas. Becky, welcome to the set.
Thank you very much.
A very good friend of Rodney, and he's brought you for a special purpose, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show. But first of all, I think it would be exciting, Rodney, for you to tell us a little bit about the real Rodney DeBon. And if you'd look out into your camera over here, I know that Jason's just waiting for you to talk.
Okay.
Tell us about yourself, would you, and your family?
Well, I've lived in the Grand Prairie all my life,
All
and
right.
that means I've known you all my life.
Yes.
And I will be 41 in April. Went to all the elementary schools here, and went to Adams Junior High, and then Grand Prairie High before, it was a real division of South and North. And
Yes.
my kids, they go to South, and so, we have a little battle there whenever South and Grand Prairie play each other.
All right.
But a few years ago, I contracted a virus, and when I was 36 years old, and I was sick for about a month, and I was playing basketball still. I was in commercial basketball leagues and church basketball league. And by the spring, I started getting, I didn't have any endurance. And my mother, Eva DeBon, has been here in Grand Prairie for, I guess, 40 years. My oldest son is Heath DeBon, and he's 15 and a sophomore at South. And Chase is 12, and he's in the 7th grade at Jackson. And my wife, Isabel, who's from Dallas, Isabel and I met 20 years ago and been married 19 years this June.
Great.
Yeah, so that's my family support that I have.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And when you said the real Rodney, well, the real Rodney just came about, was actually given birth about 4 years ago.
Yes.
I thought thought that I was a Christian, and thought that I was your average good citizen, and not until I had this life-threatening event that happened to me, and precisely not until after I had my heart transplant, that I began to really realize what life was really all about, and what God is, what purpose He's had for me, and set my new life in motion.
When you finished at Grand Prairie High School, what did Rodney DeBon do there? Where did your path lead you then?
Well, I went to UTA,
All right.
and spent 4 years going to UTA and working at Central Freight Lines at night, put myself through college. And then I started a small construction business.
All right.
Did that for a few years. And then I got into the real estate business, and I guess you could call a real estate broker, real estate developer.
Yes.
And was a type A personality,
Yes.
the only goal was to do better and better each year.
Yes.
The Rodney DeBon of today is 180 degrees from the Rodney DeBon a few years ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
It changed your lifestyle.
No, it did more than that.
All right.
Did more than that. I have the greatest gift of all that came to me at the greatest cost of all for another family.
Okay, and
Yeah.
we're going to talk about David today, and let's feature him right now, would
Okay.
you? Would you like to hold up this that has his picture on it, and let's see if Jason can get us a shot of that. We're going to end the show with David's picture at the very end, because he gave the greatest gift of all, didn't he?
He
Yes,
did.
he did.
He
And
did.
he was a very special young man, and we're going to get the whole story in that he was not a real close friend of anyone on this set other than Becky, and he was Becky's brother.
That's right.
So let's go ahead with your story and tell us a little bit more about when you had your virus. Did you think that that it was going to be something as serious as this?
Well, no, certainly not. You know, I thought that because I took care of myself and didn't smoke or didn't drink and was very athletic, that I was guaranteed to live to be your age, or to be 77 or 80
Yes.
years old.
Way to
you
go.
know?
Yes.
That was my. You thought that well, certainly, why shouldn't I have that? You know.
Yes.
And when I got sick, it was just like catching the flu. It was just a virus that I didn't really know what it was. And I got sick in February of '93. And I was finally diagnosed in May of '93. And I saw 3 doctors in one day. And by the end of the day, I was given 6 months to live without a heart transplant.
I see. All right, what kind of notice does that put you on? Here you have a new thing. You're looking for a heart. You've never had an experience such as this. You don't know where to go. What did you do?
Well, the first thing that I did was, you know, I knew the doctors weren't lying to me.
Yes.
But, you know, your brain just doesn't absorb this. I know you've been through the same situation. You say, well, I feel bad, but I don't quite feel that bad. You know, your brain won't accept it. And the next was a shocker, was the doctors said that the average wait for heart transplant's 1.5 years once you get placed on the list. Well, they only gave me 6 months, so I didn't need a calculator to figure that out.
Yes.
And so my attitude at that point was, well, if this is what I have to have, then let's go try to do it. And it takes about 3 weeks to a month to get on an organ transplant list. Only if you have nothing else wrong with you, as we both had a good friend, Mike Lewis, who never made it to get on his kidney transplant list.
Yes.
Because every time Mike would get close, something else would go wrong with him. And people who need organ transplants, that's what happens. Currently, only 40% of those who are listed will ever get a transplant.
Yes.
Because of such shortage of organs. Well, this was stressed to me very strongly by the doctors, and so I knew that was the key to my survival, was the fact that when somebody else would lose a loved one, that they would look through their grief and make a donation gift of that loved one to help somebody like me. And it takes a while to get used to that thought, that somebody else has to die before you live.
Yes.
My children, Heath and Chase, were at the time 11 and 8, and it was very hard to look at your kids and not know if you're going to see them go through high school.
And if you were going to be able to make a living for them with the 6 months that you had left, that's touch and go, isn't it?
That's true. You know, I had all those thoughts going through my mind, and I was very, very fortunate, however, to have bought some disability insurance when I was about 25 years old, and I knew that would help pay the bills while I was sick, and so basically it allowed me to help concentrate on what I needed to do. But it was very stressful financially and emotionally. Isabel, my wife, she was, I guess Isabel was 34 at the time. And one of the things that really shocked me was about a week after I was diagnosed, and I had 12% blood flow at this time, I couldn't even walk to the mailbox and back. And 3 months earlier I was playing basketball 3 times a week.
Yes.
And I asked Isabel, I said, well, you know, what do you think about the prognosis? What do you think about? And she sort of shocked me. She said, well, she doesn't want to think about the future because we were supposed to grow old together. And she says, now that's not going to happen. So that kind of put it all in context for me, that I knew I had to get my mind straight and my emotions straight so that I could get through this thing. And basically, in August, I had to talk with Heath, my oldest son, and he went to Isabel and said, Mom, he said, Dad's not going to live, is he? And so Heath and I spent some time out in the backyard that day, and I basically was honest with him and told him, you know, Heath, I might not. You know, if I'm not here, you have to help with the family. Well, that's very unfair to tell that to an 11-year-old child.
Yes.
But he took it on his shoulders real well. And that night's when I finally asked God for his help. I hadn't read the Bible 2 hours my entire life. but I went to church every now and then, so I figured that was what it was, it was all about, And I literally set the Bible on the table and let it just flop open. And I just started reading at the page it opened up to. And it was Psalms 38, and it said, my heart fills within me, and show me never my days, and man, it is best it's just a whisper. And, well, what are the chances of that happening?
That's right, that's right.
So I made the proverbial deal, I said, God, if you'll help me get through this, I'll do what you want me to do. And the very next morning, a good friend of mine, who is also a good friend of Becky's grandfather, who I didn't know Becky's grandfather at the time, Ken called me in the morning. He said, I woke up this morning, I was told I was going to find you a heart. And I just kind of laughed. And I said, well, that's not going to happen, but I'll take all the help I can get,
Yes.
I hung the phone up and I thought, we need to call the...
Your faith was mighty weak, wasn't it?
Well, I said, we need to call the guys with the white, with the white coats on for Ken, Well, a few days later, Ken brought a man by to see me. His name was Mr. Bramlett, Lucky Bramlett. And that's Becky's grandfather. And this is in August of '93. We talked for a couple hours and then they left. In October of '93, 2 months later, David Nicholas, who was 22 years old, was killed in a motorcycle accident. And David was Becky's brother and Mr. Bramlett's grandson. And they made a request to donate David's heart directly to me, which had never happened before in the history of transplants.
I didn't think they could do that. Now they can?
You can do that. They don't do it with hearts and lungs and livers because, you don't have very much time and chances are it's not going to match and that sort of thing. They do with kidneys quite a bit. As a matter of fact, when I called my doctor and said, at 6 o'clock in the morning, imagine this, Ruthie, I get a phone call from Ken, and I've been waiting now about 6 months, and I was told I had 6 months to live, and I was pretty weak, and I get this phone call, and he says, there's a young man named David Nicholas who was Mr. Bramlett's grandson. He's passed away, and they want to donate his heart to you. I don't have words to describe what that's like. You hang the phone up and somebody's just offered you life.
Yes.
And so when I called the doctors and told them that's what they wanted, they were all negative. They said, well, it's not going to match. It's not going to happen. Don't worry about it. And about 12 hours later, the doctors called and said, come on in. We're going to do a transplant. Said, you guys were 100% match. And they said, it's just a miracle.
Yes.
And Ken did what God told him he was going to do. He found me a heart.
Yes.
And so my life has been turned over to him, and that's what I do all day long now, is I help other people who are waiting for their transplants. And Becky and Isabel and I, we formed the Nicholas Foundation, Organ Donor Awareness Foundation, and we travel the country, promote organ donor awareness, and try to help other people.
Now we're going to talk about that in a minute.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, you're going to be held in abeyance for a moment, and I'm going to talk with Becky. I want to find out about her, and I want her to tell me about David when she was growing up with him, and a little something about David and about before his accident. And Becky, this is your camera, and tell us a little bit about the real Becky.
Oh, well, the real Becky, I guess, is just a small town country girl, as you'd expect. I come from a very small town.
Where?
Grayford, Texas.
Grayford,
out by Possum Kingdom Lake.
All right.
A real close-knit community. We're all just real close, and if something happens to a family, the entire town suffers.
Yes.
When David had his accident, we traveled to San Antonio where he was stationed after he was in the Air Force Academy, and the people that came it was phenomenal. We had his high school basketball coach, English teachers, our pastor, youth director, aunts, uncles, all to be there with us because we knew that it was going to be a family decision what we would do. And it was hard, but at the time, but we do know that we made the right decision. Growing up with David was quite a chore. When he lived at home, he and I, we argued all the time, the normal brother-sister fights. Of course, I have a younger sister and another older brother, which David and I were the middle, so we were always the ones arguing all the time. But once he went to the academy, our relationship grew. We grew real close to each other. Had a wonderful relationship. We shared many many wonderful memories together at weddings or whenever he'd come home. Just, he was a big brother that I didn't have when he lived at home.
Yes.
He was an inspiration to me and to many people that knew him. All of my friends called him their big brother. You know, when he came home, he would always make a special time for my sister and myself, just to be with him, just to spend a little bit of time together. He was always reaching out to anybody that needed a hand. He was a great, great human being and a great friend. He was almost like a hero to me.
That's great. Now, what brought you into the Nicholas Foundation?
Well, we met Rodney and his family a year after the transplant in November during Thanksgiving, and nothing had really developed then. And then I remember 4th of July, we were out at Uncle Ken Johnson's lake house, and Rodney and his family were there, and I was there with about 15 of my friends just going wild. And he told me, he said, well, we're going up to Oshkosh, and if you want to come along, and you can see what we do. And he said, also, if you want to come and help us in the foundation, do a little stuff here and there, we'd love to have you. And that opened up a world to me, because at the time I was in college. I was going to Weatherford Junior College. I didn't have any direction whatsoever. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I was just, I guess you could say, in limbo, just trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And now I have this opportunity to work with someone that I'm very, very close to now. And I've got my career goals set. I want to work with public relations. I want to work with other nonprofit organizations once I get my degree. And it's just opened up a new world for me. Even in my Christianity, it's been wonderful.
That is a wonderful testimony. That is really great. All right, Rodney, now that we have Becky with us and we know about the foundation, where are you located? What do you need other than money, marbles, and chalk? So tell us the whole story now.
Well, it's extremely rare that an organ recipient even knows who their donor family was, let alone have interact each day.
Yes.
And every single day of our life. I've said David's name a million times, and I've written his name a million times. I've never met him. But he's why I'm here today.
Yes.
And I know I'll meet him someday. Mm-hmm. And I want to be able to look him in the eye and say, you didn't die in vain, and you did some good. And that's kind of what Becky has gotten out of this thing. I don't know many 21-year-olds who have experienced what she's experienced. And yes. She's extremely mature. Our office is in the Arlington Airport.
Okay.
We have a large aircraft, a DC-3, 1940s airliner, that's called the Heart of America. And we take that airliner to air shows and to special events all over the country and promote organ donor awareness. For the simple fact that we can get in front of 40 or 50,000 people in a single weekend.
Yes.
I don't know any other way to do that.
Yeah.
And it gets a lot of exposure. We've had, I think we've had about 12 major news stories done on us. We've been in newsprint 18 times, including Newsweek. We're in Newsweek, the September 8th issue of this last year. And when somebody walks up to you and they say, and you tell them you've had a heart transplant, well, first of all, they look at me and I look almost healthy, almost perfect,
Yes.
And they say, well, I can't believe you had a transplant. And I say, and I have Becky's brother's heart in me. And they look at her, and Ruthie,
it's hard to believe, isn't it?
You have to be there to feel it.
Yes.
I mean, and the whole cause for organ donation is just education. The simple fact is there's almost 60,000 people now waiting for a transplant on the transplant list. There's another 20 or 30,000 at any one time trying to get on the transplant list.
Try to get on there.
Just like Mike was trying.
Mm-hmm.
And 40% of those will not live long enough to get a transplant.
I want to ask you this. DC-3s do not come cheap.
No.
Did you buy this sucker, or did someone was someone generous to you?
No, Isabel and I talked Textron Financial into making us a loan on the airplane, because they knew me in the past when I had other aircraft, and they were pretty leery about it, making up, for something like that. And we persuaded them to do so. We make the payments each month. We certainly can have financial support. We need it very badly.
You need money.
We need money. We also need volunteers. One thing we're really lacking right now is we're trying to find somebody, a mature woman in her 40s or 50s, who would like to come donate time at the office 2 or 3 days a week to be like an office organizer for us.
All right.
I travel the country and give speeches. I'm speaking to 1,100 life insurance agents in Atlanta, Georgia on the February the 6th. Becky and Isabel and I spent about 3 sleepless nights putting together all the 1,100 pamphlets that we have to get together,
Yes.
So we could use all the help we can get. We have got the Heart of America in front of 1,500,000 people in the last 2 years. That's live crowds. We, through the TV news stories and through the paper print, we've exposed another 7 million people to organ donation in just 2 years. And we've done all this largely on a very small amount of private funds. Isabel and I have put in our whole heart and soul into this, as well as Becky has. We don't take any monetary compensation whatsoever out of the foundation, not a penny. And I've never been happier in my entire life.
Yes.
I mean, witness to the fact that the Lord's miracle to us, and to just to contribute each day. I mean, we go through life thinking that success means money, success means how much you make. Doesn't mean any of that.
Would you like to tell everyone in the audience how to get on the list, on your list as volunteers, or how to sign a donor card with their driver's license, or everything that you know about that? Give that in
Yes,
about
ma'am.
1 minute.
Yeah, our phone number is 817-465-7691. And you can call us, and if you want to volunteer or if you want to help contribute some money. If you want to be an organ donor, all you merely have to do is tell your family that's what you'd like to do. You can have a donor card, or you can call us and we'll send you one, but that's just a symbolic gesture. The most important thing is tell your family that's what you want to do. Because at the time of your passing, you're no longer there. And if you haven't told your family, then they don't know. And it's a very stressful time at that point in time to be discussing those issues. It needs to be an issue discussed beforehand. And that's the best thing to do if you want to become an organ donor. But if you could call us at our phone number at 817-465-7691, and or if you know somebody who needs a transplant, give us a call and we'll help you, direct you to the right facility.
Okay, all right. Now, Becky, I want to get back with you. I've got a couple of more minutes that we need to discuss with you. What do you want to do with the rest of your life? You've mentioned your PR work, etc.
Well, I can't really say what I want to do with the rest of my life. I want to work with organizations.
When will you be out of college?
The fall of '99 is what we're hoping for.
Right.
We're waiting for graduation.
That was the magic date
Yes,
that I
ma'am.
was looking for. Okay.
I want to go where God leads me. Right now, He's put me in a situation that is far beyond anything I could ever imagine. And many people always come up to me and say, "Now, what do you do?" And I'm like, "Well, I work with organ donor awareness and the recipient of my brother's heart." And it takes them a minute, and they just kind of look at me and like, "What?"
Yeah.
And I tell them it's a very, very special bond that I've formed with a family. As I live with Rodney's younger sister now, and it's just a great bond, especially for me to know that David is still alive.
Yes.
In Rodney and in all of our hearts.
Mm-hmm.
I go and I watch Heath and Chase play ball. They're my nephews, I call them. I tell everybody, I say, "This is my brother." But as far as my future right now is graduating college and just hopefully keeping the foundation going as long as possible. And someday I want to be able to rejoice in knowing that I've helped other people. And that's my main goal, is leading others to Christ and being a good influence for the public.
How do you balance your college life and your donated time that you give to the foundation?
Oh, my college life is, I go to school, I'm a full-time student. I have 16 hours this semester.
Wow.
I go into the office Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday after classes. And I work it. I don't know how I do it, but it's, but God, if this is what God wants me to do, and He's making it possible. So I'm not in any kind of sorority or any kind of clubs.
That's your sorority, isn't it?
My club is the foundation.
Yes.
That's what I do. I don't need a bunch of other people telling me to do another kind of charities, because this is what I do, and that's my sorority.
All right, Rodney, in about the minute and a half that we have left, I want you to look out into your camera and talk to the young people in Grand Prairie, Texas, and tell them how important it is for them to get a focus on life, and that something that they could never expect to happen to you, so do something for someone else.
Well, the biggest message I want to get across to the young people of Grand Prairie is that whether you're a sophomore or a junior or in junior high, and you think your whole world has come to an end because of some problem, let me tell you, there's one thing I can assure you, that is not the biggest problem you're going to face in your life. So get over it. and the thing is that there's two constants in life. Bad things happen, and life's not fair sometimes. And when bad things do happen, you have two choices. One is you let it run your life, or through God's faith, you make something good, just as what Becky has done with the passing of her brother. Mm-hmm. She's made something good out of it. You never know what resources you have within yourself and what you're capable of doing until you reach down and ask God's help for that resource. And Grand Prairie is a wonderful place to grow up. Don't let your peers press you into doing things that you know is not right, because it's your life that's going to get screwed up, not theirs. And let me tell you something, guys and girls, you have no idea where you're going to be or what you're going to be doing 10 years from now. So just think positive and don't let small problems run your life.
Finally, the Nicholas Foundation in Arlington, Texas, at the Arlington Airport, and your magic telephone number for volunteers, for money, anything that would help this improve is? 817-465-7691. And you'd be glad to hear from them today?
Anytime.
Or whenever?
Anytime, day or night.
And do you have a recording machine on there in the event that you're not in the office?
Yes, ma'am, we do. It sounds better than I do, so.
That's a blessing. I want to thank y'all very much for being here today. It's been a blessing.
Thank you.
And this is Ruthie Jackson reminding you that history is as we live and do.